Hi scholars, welcome to Miss Imani B's classroom. I'm Miss Imani or Miss B, and today we have another episode of Miss B Reads. For today's read aloud, however, I'm going to actually give you a job to do. Do you think you can handle it? Yeah, so for this job, what you're going to need is something to write on and something to write with. It can be a piece of paper and a pencil. It can be a sticky note and a marker. It can be a whiteboard and a marker, but you're just going to need something to keep track of your notes. Today's read aloud is The Stories Julian Tells, and it was written by Anne Cameron. In today's read aloud, we're only going to read the first part of the first chapter. And what we're going to be focusing on is the character Julian. Julian is what we call our main character, meaning the book is all about him. And as we're reading, we're going to notice that Julian comes to face a couple of conflicts. A conflict is like a problem. It's like the ouch moment in a story. And we're going to learn about Julian by what he does when he faces the conflict. So what I want you all to be keeping track of is when he faces a conflict, what does Julian do? The reason why we're going to be keeping track of those things is we're going to try to collect information about the type of character Julian is. So we're looking at what he does, what he says, what he thinks, what he feels whenever he comes to face a conflict. So whenever there's an ouch moment in the story or there's a problem, what is Julian's reaction? How does he face the conflict? And what does that teach us about the type of character he is? If you don't have paper, if you don't have something to write with, pause this video and go get it, because I'm so excited and I'm so ready to get started. So let's go ahead. The Story Julian Tells, and we're only doing part of chapter 1 today. The pudding like a night on the sea. I'm going to make something special for your mother, my father said. My mother was out shopping. My father was in the kitchen looking at the pots and the pans and the jars of this and that. What are you going to make? I said. A pudding, he said. My father is a big man with wild black hair. When he laughs, the sun laughs in the window panes. When he thinks, you can almost see his thoughts sitting on all the tables and chairs. When he is angry, me and my little brother Huey shiver to the bottom of our shoes. What kind of pudding will you make? Huey said. A wonderful pudding, my father said. It will taste like a whole raft of lemons. It will taste like a night on the sea. Then he took down a knife and sliced 5 lemons in half. He squeezed the first one. Juice squirted in my eye. Stand back, he said, and squeezed again. The seeds flew out on the floor. Pick up those seeds, Huey, he said. Huey took the broom and swept them up. My father cracked some eggs and put the yolks in a pan and the whites in a bowl. He rolled up his sleeves and pushed back his hair and beat up the yolks. Sugar, Julian, he said, and I poured in the sugar. He went on beating. Then he put in lemon juice and cream and set the pan on the stove. The pudding bubbled and he stirred it fast. Cream splashed on the stove. Wipe that up, Huey, he said. Huey did. It was hot by the stove. My father loosened his collar and pushed at his sleeves. The stuff in the pan was getting thicker and thicker. He held the beater up high in the air. Just right, he said, and sniffed in the smell of the pudding. He whipped the egg whites and mixed them into the pudding. The pudding looked softer and lighter than air. Done, he said. He washed all the pots, splashing water on the floor, and wiped the counter so fast his hair made circles around his head. Perfect, he said. Now I'm going to take a nap. If something important happens, bother me. If nothing important happens, don't bother me. And the pudding is for your mother. Leave the pudding alone. He went to the living room and was asleep in a minute, sitting straight up in his chair. Huey and I guarded the pudding. Oh, it's a wonderful pudding, Huey said. With waves on the top like an ocean, I said. I wonder how it tastes, Huey said. Leave the pudding alone, I said. If I just put my finger in there, I'll know how it tastes, Huey said. And he did it. You did it, I said. How does it taste? It tastes like a whole raft of lemons, he said. It tastes like a night on the sea. You've made a hole in the pudding, I said. But since you did it, I'll have a taste. And it tasted like a whole night of lemons. It tasted like floating at sea. It's such a big pudding, Huey said. It can't hurt to have a little more. Since you took more, I'll have more, I said. That was a bigger lick than I took, Huey said. I'm going to have more again. Whoops, I said. You put in your whole hand, Huey said. Look at the pudding you spilled on the floor. I'm going to clean it up, I said, and I took the rag from the sink. That's not really clean, Huey said. It's the best I can do, I said. Look at the pudding, Huey said. It looked like craters on the moon. We have to smooth this over, I said, so it looks the way it did before. Let's get spoons. And we evened the top of the pudding with spoons. And while we evened it, we ate some more. There isn't much left, I said. We were supposed to leave the pudding alone, Huey said. We'd better get away from here, I said. We ran into our bedroom and crawled under the bed. After a long time, we heard my father's voice. Come into the kitchen, dear, he said. I have something for you. Why? What is it? My mother said out in the kitchen. Under the bed, Huey and I pressed ourselves to the wall. Look, said my father out in the kitchen. A wonderful pudding. Where is the pudding? My mother said. Where are you, boys? My father said. His voice went through every crack and corner of the house. We felt like two leaves in a storm. Where are you? I said. My father's voice was booming. Huey whispered to me, I'm scared. We heard my father walking slowly through the rooms. Huey, he called. Julian. We could see his feet. He was coming into our room. Oh my goodness, scholars. What is going to happen? All we know is that Julian and Huey are under the bed right now, and their father is looking for them. Take a second and make sure that you took time to write down how Julian has been responding to any conflict, even this latest conflict of them realizing what they did to the pudding. How did Julian respond? What did he do? Take time to write that down and think, what does that teach us about the type of character he is? I can't wait to read the second part of this chapter and gain more information about Julian so we can really think about the type of character he is by what he says, what he thinks, what he does, and what he feels when he comes across a conflict or an ouch moment. Until next time, bye!